doing everything what needed to be done. And it gives us great pleasure to once again have with us the Rabbi Krohn, who has inspired us on countless occasions in our wider life, specifically over here in Yeshiva 3 times before. And once again, it gives us great pleasure to have Rabbi Krohn.
It's a great challenge to be able to come back to the yeshiva once again. I thank the Rosh Yeshiva for inviting me. I thank my dear friend Rav David. I think you were the first one to bring me here. Yeah. And it's nice to speak in front of Rav Lapyan and all the wonderful people. And I just feel bad for Mr. Hassel because he did hear me give this drasha once before, but I find that it is so inspirational and really will change you forever in some of the things, you'll see. And that's why I felt that when I spoke to Yeshiva, this topic is something that is negaya to every single one of us, literally 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every moment. And that's the topic of tefillah. Now you may wonder why, what does that mean that tefillah is negaya to us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? Isn't it just one week down, Shabbos, Mincha, Ma'ariv? So I'll tell you something very interesting. You know that I take many tours, and I hope that one day we can all go together. We go to Poland, in different years we've gone to Lithuania. Who's going?
She was going 3 weeks.
Are you serious?
Paysach, come with.
Okay, so we got to talk about it. That's amazing. Wait, you have a whole itinerary?
Yeah.
So you know what I'll do? I'll send you the videos of what I spoke.
No, it's not good enough. We want you to come with.
All right.
If you don't second, that's one of the best.
Okay, 1 second. Okay, we'll talk about it. Okay, we'll definitely talk about it because it's life changing. You guys never went to Poland before, of course not. It's life changing, knowledge. But anyway, so 2 years ago I was in Ukraine, and then one Shabbos I decided, the guy who organized the tour, that he's going to be in Uman for Shabbos. Fine. And we're in Uman, and there was a tremendous, the summer before, Rav Mata Frank. If you ever go to Eretz Yisrael, you must get to see Rav Mata, tremendous charismatic person. And he said to me, you know who's in Uman this Shabbos? He's here on a private vacation, him and his wife. And in Eretz Yisrael, you can't get him because hundreds and hundreds of people are always online to see him. But, he's here alone, so maybe let me take you to him and we can speak. And his name was Rav Sholem Arush. Rav Sholem Arush. He wrote a book. It's called The Garden of Emunah. Anybody who has any questions about Emunah, making a connection to Hashem, get that book. It is fabulous. And they sold over 1 million copies. That's hard to believe. 1 million copies. It's translated in many, many different languages. And so I was introduced to him. The guy looks like he walked out of Gan Eden. Long payas, a strimal, the most warm smile you could imagine. And he's wearing this gold bekisha. And I met him in the shul in Uman. Mata Frank introduces me. And he says to me, let's go for a walk. And he takes my hand, and I was like transformed into a different world. And we started talking. And one of the things that we spoke about, besides Emunah, was the idea of tefillah. And he asked me a question that I never thought about before. He said, what does it mean that Avram made up Shachris, and Yitzchak made up Mincha, and Yaakov made up Ma'ariv? What did they daven? They didn't have an art scroll siddur. They didn't even have any siddur in those days, right? So what did they daven? What was davening? What did Avram mean? And what does Yaakov mean? And what did Yitzchak mean? And he said, you know what davening means? Davening means talking to Hashem. He said, in those days, a guy would just stand by a wall, no interruptions, him and the wall, and he started talking to Hashem. That's what davening is. The fact that Chazal later on came and organized it and put a structure to it, that's to make it easier for us. But you could daven to Hashem 24/7. If you're in trouble and you've got a problem, you just stand and you just talk to Hashem. And He's available. He's in Elayonu V'Layisha, Hashem Yisrael. He's always there, 24/7. So anytime you have a problem, you could just talk to Hashem. So I remember I said to Rav Shalom, I was so inspired by him, I said, we got 60 people here. Would you mind coming just to talk to us during Shalosh Shudas, just to say a few words? He said, okay, good, fine, I'll be here. So he comes in during Shal Shudas. We got a whole group of people, men, women, they all come on the trip. And the first words out of his mouth was so shocking, I couldn't believe it. He said, take a look at me. Now, he looked, like I said, like he walked out of Gan Eden. He said, I'm a Bochurim. Nobody could believe it. This guy's a Bochurim. He said, let me tell you about myself. He said, when I was 23, I was in the Israeli army, and I was doing every Avera that you could possibly imagine. Obviously, drugs, girls, whatever. Anything that you could possibly imagine. He was into everything. And he said, I was a paratrooper. I was in the helicopter corps in the Israeli army. And one day, 6 of my friends were on a helicopter, and that helicopter crashed, and they all got killed. In one day, I lost my 6 closest friends. He said, I was going crazy. I couldn't believe life is over in 1 second. Here, all of us, 23, 24, we were living the life. We had the greatest time, and all of a sudden life was over. And I began to realize, I thought, there's got to be more meaning to life. It can't just be you just have a good time and then you just drop dead. It's got to be something. There's got to be meaning. Why were you coming into this world? He said, I started researching, I started asking, I started studying. And then I began to realize that there's a serious part to life. And he said eventually he became a Breslov Chassid, and eventually he wrote that book on Emunah. But he taught me a very important lesson, that what davening really is a conversation. A conversation between you and Hashem. Now, of course, the best thing is that when you're davening and you know what you're saying. And I want to tell you exactly how to do that. Because, remember, Yaakov didn't see his son, Yosef, for 22 years. And then when he finally saw him, the Pasuk tells us that he said, Ro'oi fanecha lo filolti. That's a Bereshis Mem Chesed. Seeing your face, Rashi says, what does filolti mean? Filolti means I never had a machshava. I never even thought about it, that I would see you after 22 years. And the Maral says, you see what that word is, filolti? That's where the word tefillah comes from. Tefillah is a thought process. When we're talking to Hashem, just like I'm thinking of every word that I'm saying to you right now, when we talk to Hashem, we've got to be thinking what we're saying. And I'll tell you something very interesting. In the first sin in the Shulchan Aruch, it tells us, it's better to daven less and understand more than to daven more and understand less. Because that's really what tefillah is. Tefillah is a connection between you and Hashem. Now, again, if a guy doesn't understand the meaning of the words and he says the words, so there's value in that as well. But the main thing is that a person should be able to make a connection. As a matter of fact, you may not realize this, but Rabbi Krohn said that in every Shemona Esrei, you could talk in your own language. You could add your own words. And I'll tell you what he says. In Siman Kuf Nun Ches, he writes, Ukeshet Ispalel, when you daven, Toisif al kol bracha u bracha. Add every bracha. What's on your mind? Ki heim machinim es alev. That's going to make you have more kavanah. Now, I'll give you an example. We all know people that are sick. Some people, even in our families, are sick. So when you daven Rifa'inu, you can say Hashem. Now, if you take a look at some of the Shidduchim, they have a certain Hebrew outside. But you don't have to say it in Hebrew. Those 8 words, you can say, Hashem, my grandma is sick. Or my friend's father is sick. Please help me. Help me. Help that person. Now, I'll tell you something that I have in mind when I say Atachayim Liyodam Das. Atachayim Liyodam Das means that you want to have Hashem should give you wisdom. So if I have to give a major speech, and I know there's going to be a couple hundred people there, so when I daven Atachayim, I'm thinking, Hashem, please make it that I have the right mind, and that I have the right kavanah, and that I say the right words, and I can be able to inspire people. And I'll tell you another thing that I think of. I don't know if anybody ever thinks about this, but I'll tell you what I think of. Hashem, give us. Who's us? You know what I think us is? I don't need the Talmidei Chachamim. Give the doctors wisdom. There's so many people who are sick, and they don't have the right cures. Give us daya. Give the doctors daya that they should be able to cure all those people that are so sick in the hospitals. So when you're talking to Hashem, well, let's say Baruch Aleinu. Baruch Aleinu, that's Parnasa. So a lot of us have parents that are struggling in Parnasa. A lot of us have friends that are struggling in Parnasa. So before, at the end of Baruch Aleinu, or by Kiyat Shemei Tefillah, you could talk and mention that person's name. Look, he's struggling. And you know something? There are many kids that go off the derech. You know why? Because the parents don't have any money. And they're sick and tired of it. Why are we so poverty-stricken? You know? So poverty sometimes brings out the worst in people because they're struggling. Daven to Hashem. Because everything is only because Hashem wants it. So if you know somebody that's struggling, and they say, why not sit down? What do you daven for them? In Baruch Aleinu, or in Shema Aleinu. And the Rabbanim will show you where you can add the words. But that's again, because Tefillah is something that you're making a connection to. Tefillah is something that you're talking to Hashem.
Rabbi Krohn?
Yes?
No question.
Only at the end, if you don't mind, because otherwise there'll be no end. I'll be happy to answer all the questions. But I know once we start, it'll divert the whole thing. So please excuse me, please be mindful. Now, I want to tell you something very interesting about the Satmar Rebbe. The Satmar Rebbe had a great sense of humor. Now, he was a genius, tremendous Talmud Chacham, you know, from the Gedolei Hador. But I want to tell you a great joke that he once said that has nothing to do with the speech, but then you'll see what kind of person he was. He was once collecting money for one of his institutions, one of his yeshivas. And one guy gave him $47. So the Rebbe said to him, where'd you get that number 47? He said, Rebbe, it's matcha your name, Yoel, Yud Vav Aleph Lamed. It's equal 47. So he said to the guy, you know, in the old country they called me Yoelish. Okay? That's with a shin at the end, another $300. And you can be sure the Satmar Rebbe got the $300 from this guy. Right? But the idea is, so he was the type of person that was very liked. So you can't ask this to every Rebbe, which I'm going to tell you somebody asked him. Because if the Rebbe is like very, very serious or, you know, could get insulted, you can't get away with this. But there was a batchen is like a jester at a wedding, Hasidic guy, and he went over to the Rebbe, and he said, Rebbe, do you mind if I imitate you? Now, you know, there are a lot of people who don't like to be imitated. They think that people are making fun of them. But the Rebbe was okay with that. Now, I know there's a lot of people that try to imitate me. Most of them are absolutely awful. There's only one guy who can imitate me, that it's so great that I think that, you know, like he's me and I'm him. And that's my grandson. I have a grandson. If he would be up here right now, you would think I'm talking. It is unbelievable. And it's so funny, and he understands me so well, that sometimes I tell him, look, if I would speak on this topic, what would I say? And he's amazing. He's just amazing. He just understands my way of thinking and my mannerisms. I didn't even know that I had these mannerisms, but you know, I watch him, and sometimes when I'm speaking, I hear him. You know, it's just amazing. But anyway, so this guy goes over to the Rebbe and says, do you mind if I imitate you? So he's at the chasana, and the Rebbe says, I don't mind. So they sit down, the Rebbe in the middle, and everybody's sitting around. This guy gets a tallis, he puts it over his head, and he starts davening the way the Rebbe did, with his high-pitched voice, and the accent, and the nusach, the way the Rebbe said it. Everyone was hysterical, because the imitation was extraordinary. Everyone was hysterical, except the Rebbe. The Rebbe's watching this guy, and his mouth goes open. He can't believe this imitation. And suddenly the Rebbe starts crying. Now, in the beginning, the Badchan, the joker, he didn't realize, because he was concentrating on everybody laughing. But then when he saw his Rebbe crying, he stopped right away and he said, wait, I'm sorry, Rebbe, I didn't mean to make the Rebbe cry. So he said, no, it has nothing to do with you. So he said, so well, why is the Rebbe crying? Listen to what he said. He said, I saw how you were imitating me. It was so perfect, it was so exact, that it occurred to me that sometimes when I come to shul, I'm only imitating myself. And you know what that genius remark means? That many times we have a lot of things in our head. Problems in the family, problems with ourselves, things that are going on in the world. And you know, you just don't have the head to daven. But you got to come to shul, right? You come to school, come to Beis Medrash. So what do? You shake, you turn the pages, you say the words, but your body's there, your mind is someplace else. And you're only imitating yourself. So if the Holy Rebbe could say that sometimes he's only imitating himself, what in the world should we say about ourselves? So how do we change that? How do we make sure that every tefillah is something that we make a connection to Hashem? So I'll show you later. I have a sitter that's one of my best friends. I can't say my best friend, my wife's my best friend. But besides that, my sitter talks to me every day. And I'll show you what I mean. I think from this wonderful morning together, every one of us should be makabel to get your own siddur. Big one, little one, makes no difference. And take it wherever you go. You know why? Because I'm a big believer in underlining in your siddur. Now, if you hear something nice, as you're going to hear in a few minutes, different things in Tefilos, and you underline it, then the next time you read it or you see it, you're going to remember, hey, wait a second, I remember something very special about that. That's got a message for me. But if we hear something this morning, or we hear from any place, something special about Tefilah, the next time you're downloading at 80 miles an hour, you won't even realize you said the words. There was a guy sitting in shul, he was standing like this. So the Kloisenberger Rebbe came over to me and says, what's going on? He says, Rebbe, I don't remember if I'm putting on my tefillin or I'm taking them off. He just was doing things automatically. But if you underline it, all of a sudden it has specific meaning to you. So I want to give you a small example. I was once a guest speaker at a Hatzalah dinner. And at that dinner, of course, they had the guys being honored, the guys who go out on the calls. You know, David, I'm sure, can tell you better than anybody that you go out, in the middle of the night, you go out and say the Paysach on a Purim suit or whatever. You're just running just to help Klal Yisrael, which is great. And then I thought I was the next speaker because they finished, with these guys. But then a guy got up and he said, guys, take a look at me. I am the result of Tefilos HaMesim. Nobody knew what he's talking about. He looked alive to everybody here. And he said, I want to tell you what happened. He said, 2 years ago, I was sitting in the living room with my wife. All of a sudden, I got a terrible chest pain. I said to my wife, I think I'm having a heart attack. And I just collapsed. And they called one unit of Hatzalah. They couldn't save me. The second unit, they couldn't save me. And the third unit came and said, we've got to get him to the hospital right away. And they said to my wife, you stay here and say Tillim, and we're going to take him to the hospital. She said, no way. I'm not staying here. I'm going in the ambulance. I'll say Tillim in the ambulance. And on the way with the defibrillator, they were able to revive me. And he said, this expression about Tefilos HaMesim is real. He said, I'll tell you why. Now, I'm sure in the Beis Medrash you have the Ritva. Take a look at the first Ritva in Masechta Tainis, the first one. And he says like this. He says, many people make a mistake when they daven Shemona Esrei every day. They think when it says, Ata Yivul Yelem Hashem Achaya Mesim Ata, that Hashem, that you bring those that are dead, you bring them alive, that's talking about the future. He said, no, that's wrong. The 3 times it says the words Machayim Mesim. Only the third one, V'nemon Ata Lihachyes Mesim. You're going to do it in the future, but the first 2 are different. The first 2 are Machayim Mesim, the fact that we have food. If any of us here didn't eat in the last 5 days, we'd all be dead. Nobody would be here. So the mere fact that Hashem allows produce to grow, and allows produce so that we can develop it into bread and cakes and anything like that, that's the first Tefilos HaMesim, the fact that there's food in the world. There are many people starving out there. In Venezuela today, people are dying because they got no food, right? Because the crazy guy in the government, won't let them have food, and people are dying. So if there's no food, there's no life. That's the first Tefilos HaMesim. The second one, he says, sometimes the guy is on the verge of death, on the threshold of death, and Hashem sends the right Hatzalah unit. Hashem sends the right, he sends the right medication. And that's why he says, the first one is on food. The second one is, that's what it says. What does it say? So he says, that's all of us, no guys, that were very sick, men or women, and the last second, Hashem saved them, and God came and saved them. Now, the other night, I had to make a video for somebody in Stanford Health. A wonderful, wonderful woman. Her name is Mami Sprung. And she's Mamish Tzadikis. She told me that she's dealing with 20 cancer patients. And they have them Lav Malka next Saturday night. And they wanted I should make a little video of Chizuk. And that's what I told them. I told them, never give up. Because the last second, Hashem could send a refuah, could send the right doctor, the right combination of medicines, and a person could be saved. And that's what Tefilos HaMesim is. Somebody who's got cancer might think that they're dead. It's over. But it's not over. Because Hashem could send any refuah. So in my siddur, I have that underlined, those 3 times. Machayim Mesim 3 times. One is food, one is illness, and one is about the future. But if you don't have it underlined, there's no way you're going to remember it. But when you have it underlined in your personal siddur that you carry around with you, so that siddur is talking to you. Now, I'll tell you a great story. I was once in Eretz Yisrael, and I was told that there's a very big tzaddik, Rav Shlezinger, who knew the Slabodka Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi Cheskel Abramsky. And people said to me, go over to Rav Shlezinger and ask him stories about Rabbi Cheskel Abramsky. He'll tell you great stories. So I went over to him and I said, could you tell me a story about Rabbi Cheskel Abramsky that nobody knows? He said, okay, I'll tell you a story. He said he had a friend, Rabbi Cheskel Abramsky did, the Amshon of a Rebbe. They both lived in Bayern. He said he was very sick and he needed a transfusion. So somebody came to Rabbi Cheskel Abramsky and he said, Rebbe, your friend is sick. He needs a transfusion. He said, we got to say Tillim. He said, but you should know, I daven every day that I don't need a transfusion. He said, every day you daven that you don't need a transfusion? Where do you daven that? He said, you daven it also, except we don't realize. He said, what? Now watch, we're going to say all this when we bench. Listen how he touched. V'no al tatzrichenu Hashem alekenu. Hashem, make it that we don't need loy lidei matnas, we don't need the present of basar, a transplant, or dam, a transfusion. Could you imagine? Loy lidei matnas, basar, v'dam? That's how he touched it. So I remember I went back to my Rabbi Krohn in Brooklyn. I said, that's a shot in the word. Loy lidei matnas, basar, v'dam means not to come out to a human being. He said, of course that's a regular shot. But sometimes you can have a double and a triple meaning in Shemoneh, in the words of Chazal. And if something means something to you and it makes sense, so then that becomes your tefillah. So in my venture, or in my siddur, I have that underlined. Nobody wants a transfusion, nobody wants a transplant. So you're not going to believe this. Now, I don't know if this is a latzonis or not, but I think it's hysterical. I was in a restaurant in Eretz Yisrael this past summer. The guy comes over to me and says, Rabbi Krohn, because of you, I'm in the restaurant business, I thought of a grape shot in davening. I said, what are you talking about? He said, remember you told that story about Rabbi Cheskel Abramsky? I said, yeah. No, he said, look, I'm in the food business. Look at this passage. No, he said, lechem l'chol basar, ki li'alam chastam. Hashem gives bread to all humanity. Hashem is so good. He said, what if a guy wants to eat a hot dog? What kind of bread does he get? He gets a bun, right? Now, what happens if the guy wants to eat cheese and lox? Not going to eat on a bun. He eats it on a bagel, right? Now, what if the guy wants a shawarma? So he's not going to eat it on a bun. He's not going to eat it on a bagel. He eats it on a lava. And what if a guy wants falafel balls? He's not going to eat it on a bun or a shawarma. He eats it on a pita. Wow, look, Hashem is so great. No, he's saying lechem. He gives us all kinds of bread. The whole boss, big type of meat. Falafel balls, hot dogs. God's so great. Right? Whoever thinks of that? So, I don't know if it's a real shot or not, but I wrote it in the book anyway because I think it's hysterical. They said lechem l'chol basar. So, but that, he's in the food business, so that's what he thought of. So probably in his spirit, he's got it underlined. Now I'll tell you another thing that I have underlined in my siddur, which I think is very, very important. Let's see if we can figure this out. Every morning we say in Hallelujah, we give a compliment to Hashem. We say Haroifei l'shvurei leiv. Hashem is the one who heals the brokenhearted. I once heard a Hasidic Rebbe say, let's see if you can figure it out. What word can you make from the first letters of those three words? Haroifei l'shvurei leiv.
Hello.
Very good. Halal, right? What does halal mean? Praise. That means that if you can be the kind of person that heals the brokenhearted, and many guys, even in this room, that are so depressed and they feel so low about themselves, and you put your arm around them and say, listen, I'm your friend, I can help you. Let me help you get out of the doldrums. That's a roifei l'shvurei leiv. That's halal. That's the biggest compliment that you can be getting for yourself. You got that midah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's a roifei l'shvurei leiv. So of course, when I have a line in my siddur and I see it every morning, I'm remembering, hey, that's what I got to do. You got to make people feel good, not break people. There are a lot of people that are down and out. How are you going to make them feel special? You have to build people, not break people. Anybody can break somebody. But if a guy is down and out and he feels awful about himself, and you're able to put your arm around them and make them feel special, that's a roifei l'shvurei leiv. That's really what it's all about. So how do you see it? How do you see it? You see it here when you underline it. And then you're going to remember that's what your job is all about. So I want to tell you a great story. During the Second World War, there was a very big tzaddik. His name was the Skolena Rebbe, Rabbi Lezer Zisha, Portugal. And what happened was that during the war in Romania, him and his wife, they protected over 400 young men and women at different times of the war in their house to make sure that they don't have to go to concentration camps and make sure that they don't have to go to the Romania. At different times, the boys and girls were there. One day, somebody snitched. And he went to the authorities and he said, you know, the rabbi is doing something against the government. So, of course, the police came and they saw that it was true and they put him in jail. And they put him in jail and they told him that he's going to rot there until he dies. They took away his glasses, they took away his yarmulke, and they put him in solitary confinement. Now, every day when the Skolenu Rebbe died, he was such an Avodat Hashem, Shimon Esra took close to an hour. The Baal Tefillah never waited for him, the Tzibur never waited for him. He was in a different world. But now that he was in jail, so he could daven even slow, he knew it by heart. So how did he daven? He didn't have a yarmulke, he took his jacket, put it over his head, and he started davening. The second day that he was there, he was saying the words very slowly, and suddenly he had a question in davening. And he got so angry at himself. How could I never have had this question before? I've been davening all my life, I never thought about it. What was the question? The question was that in Baruch She'amar, everything that we say in Baruch She'amar is positive. Baruch She'amar, wherever Hashem said there should be a world, Merachem ala Oretz, Merachem ala Briyos, he helps and he's compassionate. And then all of a sudden it says a terrible thing. Now we know Hashem sometimes has to make a gzeira on somebody. Baruch Goyzer, Hashem makes a gzeira, Umakayim, and he fulfills the gzeira. So that's terrible. How does that feel in Baruch She'amar? Everything in Baruch She'amar is positive. How does it fit in there? So he said, Hashem, don't let me out of here until I figure this out. Until I figure this out. What is this doing in here? And he kept on saying the words, Baruch Goyzer Makayim, Baruch Goyzer Makayim. And then all of a sudden he came up with such an ingenious pshat that he realized, he said afterwards, I knew the second I came up with this pshat, I'm going to get out of jail in 2 or 3 days. And he did get out in 2 or 3 days. And every year on the yahrzeit, or on the anniversary, when he got out of jail, he would say over this pshat. That's how people heard it. My cousin heard it from him, and he told it to me. You know what Umakayim means? Umakayim doesn't mean only fulfill. Baruch Goyzer, Hashem makes a gzeira, fulfills it. Umakayim means kiyum, to give an existence. That you can have kiyum, you can make it through it. Sometimes Hashem gives us a terrible gzeira. And we feel, how are we going to get out of this mess? We're stuck, we'll never get out of it. Just remember, for whatever reason, life is a test. And sometimes you're tested with Umakayim. You're going to make it through. So no matter what situation you are in life, whether a guy's in so much in drugs, or a guy's got no friends, or a guy's just down and out, he's got no money, don't worry. You're going to make it. Baruch Goyzer Umakayim. Hashem made it gzeira, it's tough. Umakayim, but you're going to make it. And that's why I have it underlined in my Baruch She'amar. So when you see it in the morning, and you know we all go through challenges, that's what Golus is. Nobody gets away scot-free. You come into base ministry, you come into community, you think, oh, this guy, he's got everything. That's only because you don't know what's going on in his life. Everybody's got stuff. That's what Golus is all about. But just remember, if Hashem gave you the stuff, you're going to make it. Baruch Goyzer Umakayim. Now, most of you here are probably not old enough to remember 9/11. You know, when it happened in America, America shook to the core. It will never, ever, ever be the same. Ever. And I remember that morning of 9/11, I had done a bris in the morning, and I was on my way home to put away my bris instruments, and I was going to fly to Toronto, because I was speaking in Toronto that night. I'm on my way home, my wife calls me in the car, she says, you can't get to the airport. I said, what's the problem? The plane just went into one of the towers. Nobody knows if it's a terror attack or an accident, but all the airports are closed. Well, you know, I put on the radio, and I couldn't believe it. That's exactly, everybody was talking about that. Now, at that point yet, they weren't frightened, because everybody thought it could be an accident. Of course, I ran home, put away my instruments, turned on the radio, and just as I turned on the radio, the second plane was going in. Well, that was the change of the world forever. And then, of course, a few hours later, we found out that there was a third plane in Washington, D.C., and a fourth plane in Pennsylvania, and everybody knew it was a terrible, terrible terror attack. 3,000 people got killed. About 2 hours after the whole incident, I get a call from a woman who was actually born here in England. Her name is Mrs. Rachel Reifer. She was the principal of the girls' school in Queens. And I admit, I'm on the board. I hired her. One of the reasons that I hired her, I'm not the only one who's on the board, but I hired her for her English accent. Everybody, to me, who's got an English accent, to me they all sound smart. And if you got a South African accent, you're a genius. So, yeah, exactly. That's what I said. Right, we know that. Right, it's true. So, anyhow, she gives me a call. She says, Rabbi Krohn, you got to come tomorrow morning, and you got to give a total perspective of what's going on. I said, are you kidding me? I'm frightened like everybody else. I don't know what's going on. You know, the whole world is shaking. And that's all everybody's talking about. It's frightening. You know, airports were closed for, 2 weeks after that. She said, no, but I got to make an assembly tomorrow. I'm letting all the kids go home early today. Please, I'm begging you. You got to come to school. I said, look, you got to give me a couple hours. I never go any place to speak unless I'm prepared. I got to call Rabbanim. I got to look in Svarim. Just give me time, and I'll call you in 2-3 hours. 2-3 hours later, I give her a call. I said, okay, good. I'll be there tomorrow. Now, every place that I go, so before I speak, whether it's the Rosh Hashiva that gets up, to say a few words, or somebody's introducing the principal, so she also had to get up and just say 2 words. She spoke for 2 minutes. But what she said in those 2 minutes changed me till this day, even this morning by Shabbos, as you'll see in a second. And she said something I'll never forget. She said, girls, open up your Siddurim, you'll see an amazing thing. We have Aleinu, we have Kinekava, and then there's a little paragraph that most people don't say. It starts Al Tira. She said, girls, I want to read it to you. She said, Al Tira mipachat pisayin. Don't be afraid of sudden terror, and the calamity of Rishayim when it comes. We say to the Goyim, Utzu Eitza, you make a plan, the Sufa, it's going to be broken. Davu Dova, you have ideas from Loyokim, it won't have existence like we said before. Why? Ki Monokel, God is with us. And she said, girls, the whole world is terrorized because of what happened yesterday. Hang in there, don't be afraid. Al Tira, Ki Monokel, Hashem is with us. I was so moved by those words. I made a neder, bli neder. I will never miss saying Al Tira from then on. I will always say it from that mincha on that afternoon. Now, anytime you make a new Kabbalah, so you're going to miss it in the beginning, but now it's 10 years, 12 years, I can't imagine that I missed it 5 times over the years. Always, including this morning. I always say Al Tira. And if you take a look at many Siddurim, it says you should say Kaddish after Al Tira. Not before, like many shuls do. Well, that was that. Fine. Now years go by. Now, I don't know if you know, but my father died when I was 21. I'm the oldest of 7 children. I had to leave the yeshiva. I supported my mother. I walked down my brothers and sisters with my mother to the weddings of all my brothers and sisters. So I was very close to my mother. My mother was a widow for 40 long years. She never got over the passing of my father. Never. But after about 11 years ago, she was very sick and she passed away. Passed away Cholomai Tzukis. I began sitting Shiva right after Yantif with my brothers and sisters. And Mrs. Reifert, this Rachel Reifert came. She came Thursday night because we were very friendly. She came from Monsey, which is a 40-mile drive, but it took a while, but whatever. We were sitting and talking Thursday night, and finally then she went back. Motzei Shabbos, her husband, Moshe Reifert, calls me. And I figured that he's calling to me Menachem Ovel. He didn't know me well, but so he's not going to schlep from Monsey to Queens. But he's talking about a woman who died and he's crying. His mom's crying. And I'm thinking like, why is he crying? He didn't even know my mother. What is he talking about? But then I realized he's not talking about my mother. He's talking about his wife. That woman that had come to me Menachem Ovel Thursday night, Friday night, she was crossing Route 59, which is a very big street of Monsey. An old man was driving. He didn't see her, and he knocked her down, and he killed her. And now he was calling to tell me that there was a Levaya Sunday morning. That's why he was crying. You should never, ever have to go to a Levaya like that. That Levaya was Gehenna itself. The kids in school were screaming and crying because they loved her so much. She was such a great principal. You have sometimes a principal that's like a student's principal, and then you have a principal that's a teacher's principal, or the parents. The principal has to be friendly with everybody, but the kids loved her. They were screaming and crying because she was cut down in the prime of life. And the teachers were crying, the whole staff, the board, everybody was awful. Now, when it came to the Shloshim, they asked me I should speak. Because they knew I was very friendly, So I came to Muncie, without exaggeration, must have been 1,000 women there. And I told everybody the same story that I told you. How she changed me, and I've been saying Al Tira ever since she spoke about it that morning of day after 9/11. And then I said, I want to show you something. That ever since I started saying Al Tira, the last pasuk puzzled me. Because the last pasuk, Yeshaya is quoting Hashem. And Hashem says the word I 5 times. I. What's going on? I want to read it to you in Hebrew, then I'll translate. Then you're going to see an unbelievable lesson. V'yad zikna anihu, v'yad seva aniyasbo, aniyosisi, v'aniyaso, v'aniyasbo v'amalek. What is Hashem saying in this pasuk? I want to tell you what I thought. You know, every time when you see an ad for an iPad, an iPhone, or an iPod, it's always with a lowercase I. You ever notice that? Always. You know why? Because people that are in the I generation are lowercase personalities. This pasuk is teaching you, let me show you what I is. I want to teach you how to be, Hashem says, I want to teach you how to be an uppercase personality. Now watch this. V'yad zikna, you're going to get old, don't worry, Anihu, I'll be there, I don't get old, Hashem says. V'yad seva, you'll be elderly, Aniyas bo, I will carry you. Aniyas sisi, I made you. V'aniyas, I will bear you. V'aniyas bo v'amalek, and I'll save you. And you know something? In my siddur, I have those 5 aniyas underlined. You know why? I don't want to be a lowercase personality. A lowercase personality says, I need, I crave, I want. You know what this says? I help, I care, I do. That's what it's all about. That's why it's the last thing you say before you leave the shul, or near the end of davening. You're going out to the world. Not I need, I want, I crave. I help, I do, I care. There are a lot of people even in this room that need your care. They need your love, they need your validation. Everybody wants to be loved. Everybody wants to feel they have a purpose in life. The guys walking around, what am I doing in life? What am I doing here? And that's why guys go on drugs and they go on with girls and they spend the money because they have no purpose in life. They don't know what they came here for. But you can help them. Because if you find meaning in life, ani means I help, I care, I do. Not I want, I crave. And when you underline that, and before you leave the shul, you take a look at it, that siddur is talking to you. That siddur is giving you advice. My dear friend, you're not the only one in this world. There's a lot of guys that need you. You gotta go out there, you gotta help your brothers, your sisters, your physical brothers and sisters, and the brothers and sisters in Klal Yisrael. That's really what this Beis Medrash is all about. That's what the great Rosh Yeshiva is all about. That's what he did in Eretz Yisrael. That's what he's doing here. That's why this Yeshiva gave. I'll tell you something about him and people like him. Now, I know I'm on video and it's going to go all over, but I'm still going to say it anyway. You know what Gamliel Rabinovitz once told me? Gamliel Rabinovitz, the great Mukul. Don't shut up. You know what he said? He said to me, what do I have for Mir Yeshiva? What if Mir closes tomorrow? What? They'll go to Panovich. And what happens if they close Panovich? They'll go to Lakewood. And if they close Lakewood, they'll go to Slobodka. You close a place like this, they're going to the street. You come to a place where the Rosh Yeshiva is holding on to these guys who've gone through so much. You close this place, that's the end. These are the places to support. These are the people to support. Where's Mr. Hassel? He's got to work for this place. Right? He ran away. He knew I was going to talk about it. But that's the point. That's the point. This is the greatest type of yeshiva around. That's what it's all about. That's what the ani is. That's how the siddur is talking to you. The siddur is not just words that you just come in and you don't know what you're talking about. One of the greatest forms that you could buy for yourself is Art Scroll Shimon Esrei, written by Avram Chaim Foyer. So I'll give to son-in-law. You'll never, ever daven Shimon Esrei the same, because every page will show you something different. But when you're having a conversation with Hashem, and you take a look at the siddur, what the siddur is teaching you, all of a sudden it's a different davening. All of a sudden it's a different relationship. I just want to end with this great story. But I'm telling you, you're all going to need tissues. Listen to this. There's a wonderful guy. He's getting ready. Okay, there's a wonderful guy. His name is David Pelkowitz, Dr. David Pelkowitz. And Dr. David Pelkowitz is a wonderful therapist, and he's very involved with a camp called Camp High Lifeline. That's for kids now who have cancer. I've been to that camp, I've spoken to the camp. The first half of the summer is for boys, the second half of the summer is for girls. And they do fabulous, fabulous work. None of us should ever know about it, but that's what they do. So a couple of years ago, they had the session for the boys first half and the girls the second half. And at the end of the summer, the staff got together and they started talking about the whole summer program that they just had. And one guy said, you know, during the first half of the summer, we had a counselor from Australia, lovely, lovely guy, lives in America now. And he was 22. He himself had cancer, but he was in remission, and he was a great counselor for the boys. And in the second half of the summer, we had a woman counselor. She was also about 21, 22. She was also in remission, and they both need shidduchim. Why don't we read a shidduch between this guy and her? They're both wonderful people. So the other people on the staff said, what are you, crazy? These two kids, they were both so sick, and you're going to read a shidduch to them? I said, why not? They're in remission. They're intelligent people. If they want to do it, that's up to them. We can't say anything. And they read the shidduch. And sure enough, they go out and they get engaged. And this guy says to his kala, he says, look, I'm from Australia. I got to go to Australia before we get married. Got to clear up a certain amount of stuff, and then I'll come back and we'll get married. Fine. What happens is they go out on a Monday night. She looks great. They have a good time, and he gets on a plane on Tuesday. Now, I don't know if you ever traveled to Australia. It's a brutal, brutal trip. It's very long. From New York, it's 5-6 hours to Los Angeles, and then in Los Angeles, another 13 hours till you get to Melbourne. You lose a day on the way. It's just exhausting. Now, when he was on the second leg of the plane, second leg of the trip from Los Angeles to Melbourne, all of a sudden his wife, Neva, got very, very sick. And all of a sudden she turned. She was in remission, but all of a sudden something happened. They had to be rushed to the hospital. They didn't even think she was going to make it. Then I had to call her back. I had to call him back. He's going to Australia for a couple of days. He doesn't even know that this is going on. They got to get him back on the first plane coming back from Australia. How are they going to get a hold of him? He's on the plane. So they called the travel agent, and the travel agent had some connections, and they're able to get a hold of the pilot who's now flying the second leg of the trip from Los Angeles to Melbourne. And they tell him, listen, there's a young man on the flight. His bride was rushed to the hospital. You got to get to him. He's got to get the next plane coming back from Melbourne back to LA and back to New York. Now, the pilot had a lot of experience, but he never had this before. And he was scared himself. How are you going to go over to a young guy sitting on the flight and tell him such terrible news? So he takes one of the stewards, and they sit down next to this guy. This guy doesn't know what hit him. The pilot's on the right, the steward's on the left. And the pilot says, young man, I feel so bad to tell you this, but your bride just got very sick. And she's in the hospital. And we got to get you back to New York. He looks at him, he says, how do you know this? What are you talking about? He said, we just got an emergency call from the travel agent, and we just spoke to your family. We already called the security officers in Melbourne. There's a plane 2 hours after we land. We're going to get your luggage right away. We'll clear your passport. Imagine this guy. It's a long trip from New York to LA, LA to Melbourne. Now he's got to go back from Melbourne to LA and back to New York. He says, we've got to get you back right away. I'm so sorry to tell you this terrible news, but you got to get back. Gets off the plane. First thing he does, he calls his Rebbe. Calls his Rebbe in New York and he says, Rebbe, did you hear the terrible news? He said, yeah, they told me. He says, Rebbe, I want to marry her. I want to marry her. Please meet me in the hospital. I don't care. If she's going to die, I still want to marry her before she dies. And the Rebbe says, I'll come there, but I can't promise you I'm going to marry her because a girl has to know what's going on. She has to be cognizant of everything. I can't do something that's against Allah. He says, please, Rebbe, I'm begging you. I'll meet you in the hospital. He says, I promise you I'll be there for you. Gets on the plane. They got the passport, security, and everything. He gets back to LA. He calls his Rebbe again. Rebbe, please, just make sure that you meet me. He says, I'll be in the airport. I'll pick you up. I'll be there with your parents. And he comes to the airport, back to New York. He's exhausted beyond belief. He sees his parents. Everybody's crying. And he gets in the car and they come to the hospital. And again, the Rebbe tells him, look, I'm going to try to do what you want, but I can't promise you I can't do anything against Allah. He comes in, he takes a look at his kala. Can't believe it. Can't believe this is the girl he just saw 3 days ago. She's so pale, she's so frail, she hardly recognizes him. He turns to his Rebbe, he says, Rebbe, what are you saying? He says, let me talk to her. And the Rebbe starts talking to her, and she's not aware of what's going on. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. And the Rebbe's crying. And he says to the guy, I just can't do it yet. Maybe she'll come back, but right now I can't do it. And the Rebbe says to him, did you daven yet? He says, no, I was too exhausted. He said, go daven, and then come back. So the guy starts davening. And of course, he's crying throughout the whole davening. He comes to Shemoneh Esrei, and he's davening Rafa'inu, and he's crying. And he's davening Shema Kaleinu, and he's crying. And finally comes to Sim Shalom. Listen how a guy teaches in Sim Shalom. Sim Shalom, Tov Avracha. Hashem, give us peace. And then he says these words. Ki ba'or panecha nasat alonu. Hashem, with the light in your face. Hashem, you've got light in your face. Take that light, give it to my kala. Please, take that light and give it to my kala. I want to live. I want to build a family with you. Please, take that light and give it to my kala. And he's saying the words again. Ki ba'or panecha nasat alonu. Finally finishes it down. He goes into the room. He takes a look at her. He can't believe it. She's got redness in her face. She's got some light back. Hashem listened to his tefillah. He took some of the light and gave it back to the Kala. And as he's about to continue the story, Dr. Paul also heard this at a High Lifeline convention. He said the guy's ready to continue the story. All of a sudden, two little kids come running up to him. And they say, Daddy, Daddy, pick us up. Because they heard the story 50 times. And he picks up the kids. And he says, Rabbi Isai, my wife came back all the way. We got married, and these are my kids. And that's what tefillah is all about. Or panecha. That's not the touch of Or panecha, but that was the touch that he touched it. And when Hashem sees that you mean it sincerely, that's when he answers the tefillah. Whether that's the conventional meaning of the words or not makes no difference. And that's the commitment that we have to make today. Davening is a conversation. Davening, you can daven 24/7. Whether you say the words in the siddur, you say your own words. Of course, you want to say the words in the siddur because they're holy. They were written by the Anshe Knesset Doila. But the point is, you could add in your own machshava the meaning to what they said and the meaning of your own words. We're all going through stuff. Every one of us. Talk to Hashem. He's the only one that can help us. He's the one who could send us those that will help us. Maybe she should bench each and every one of us on this great morning together. That Hashem should answer our tefillas, bring us all together back to Yerushalayim and Mashiach. I thank you all for inviting me, and I thank you for listening.